Hey guys, welcome to the Powerful Man Show, where we help married businessmen save their marriages without having to talk about it, get unstuck, and gain clarity in their lives. As I like to say, life is too short for average. I'm your host, Doug Holt. Now let's get this started.
Guys, welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. With me today, I have Mrs. Mo Parks from
Hello.
the Advisors. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am very well. How's your day been?
It's good. A little chaotic this morning. My husband was spending some time with some friends, and I wanted to give him that, so I had to do a lot of the kid work in the morning. So, other than that, work's been fun.
Good. Fantastic. Okay. So there's something that I want to share with you, and I'll get your opinion on it. So I'm going to read out a message that I came across recently on Facebook, of all places. So the message is this. It's titled "A Message for Men." It's by a woman, as you'll see in a moment. I get a lot of random messages on here from strange men asking what turns me on. So I thought I might just put it out there because I think I speak for a lot of women on this, and I'm here to help. Do you want to know what turns me on? What makes me burn for you? What makes us breathless? What awakens every passionate instinct and unwraps every layer of fiery feminine sensuality? Go to freaking therapy. Do your work. Heal yourself. Lead yourself. Be brave enough to get uncomfortable for the sake of wholeness and depth. Be willing to build your emotional muscles so your arms are strong enough to hold the fire of an awakened woman. Be enough to lean into a level of depth you've never experienced. Talk. Be humble enough to admit that you don't know everything. Go deep. Get real. Stop hiding behind surface level sex. Evolve. Confront what you need to confront so you can move forward without the shadow of your past. Stop thinking that vulnerability is a weakness. It takes a giant of a wild man to get vulnerable, and it's hot. Stop running from magic when it's exactly what you need. Stop telling yourself that she's too much when the reality is you're just afraid to be enough. Lead yourself so you can lead me. Believe that you can handle it. Act accordingly. Be the safe space, the strong ground, the calm for her storm. Do this and you'll find your goddess. Do this and you'll be taken to a place of wholeness and ecstasy you didn't know existed and likely wouldn't have found on your own. Do this and you'll be home. P.S. Girls, do the same or stop complaining. I'm curious, as a woman, what do you think of that? Does that resonate?
Yeah, when the first thing she said just made me smile because I was like, yeah, it's so true. And it's just like, do the freaking work. There was a couple of things that she said in that would definitely resonate, but that first piece is, yeah, do the work on yourself.
So I'm curious. Obviously, it's always fun to bring you on and get a woman's perspective on a few things. And what I'm curious about is, we have many men that come to us and they say they want to have a better connection with the wife, right? And oftentimes the thing is the disconnection in the marriage can often come as a result of the guy being disconnected from himself, right? Maybe he's not dealt with childhood trauma or whatever it is that might be getting in the way there. And I'm curious, in your experience, or what has your experience been with the connection within your own marriage and the link there between your husband either choosing to work on himself and deal with whatever is there or not?
Yeah, so we've had an interesting story because there was a period where we both thought we were doing the work, and we realized like, oh, that wasn't. So, for example, in the mornings, I know my husband is typically doing his time of growth, whether that's through yoga, meditation, anything, breath work, whatever. When I come home from the gym, I come home and walk through the living room, which is really where he is, and it's sort of like the start to our day. And I noticed that when he's not there in the morning, like something in me just like tightens up. It's like, oh crap, he didn't do his work. I'm going to be holding more for the day. But when he's there, it's like, we're partnered. He's a guy who's working on himself. I don't have to worry about him. I don't have to work. Now there's definitely some issues for me there too. But I think that it's this sense of, man, we're okay, because he's handling his crap. Sorry, can I say that on here?
So you want. Okay. And in your opinion, doing yoga and breath work and those other things, has that been good enough? Like, has that gotten to the root of things for your husband?
No. I mean, those are kind of the maintenance work. That's not the big work, so to speak. I'd say the things that have made the biggest influence are the in-person events, the times where he's really digging into past stuff. Honestly, that's the big stuff, because all of the other things in our relationship trickle down from stuff that's kind of been implemented in him through childhood stuff, to the point where in our worst days, it'd be like his mom and my mom in the same living room fighting each other. But obviously they weren't there. It was just me and him.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long would you say that affected the marriage for without you guys knowing about it?
I mean, 9 years. Even dealing with it, like you're still seeing the residue from the unhealed pieces and the triggers that come up. And I mean, it's still something I'd say we're working through. It's not done, I think, for a while.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate. I know the times when there's distance between Amelia and I, who's my partner, it's often because one of us has become triggered by something.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, if you don't know what triggered means, essentially something happens. Maybe she says something. Maybe she doesn't do something. Maybe she doesn't say something. For example, I feel unappreciated, or she speaks to me a certain way, or whatever it may be. And as a result, I then want to react. And that reaction may come out in the form of withdrawing and pulling away from her and just going quiet. It may come out in the form of shouting or getting angry. There's many different ways it can come out, but that essentially is a trigger. At that point, a button has been pressed inside of me, and I would say that I am then triggered, right? And oftentimes for me, the trigger is usually always something that has gone on in childhood. Now, a lot of the guys that join us within the movement who resonate with the 5 agonies, right, and then resonate with the idea of no man's land and living from the outside in, which, if this is the first time that you have heard those concepts, in a nutshell, what they essentially mean is when you live from the outside in, you are more bothered about your image and how you look, and you're trying to get happiness from things outside of you, be it money, homes, holidays, cars, sex, porn, whatever it may be. You're seeking connection from something outside of you. And as a result, you're living from the outside in. You enter into the no man's land where you're kind of wondering. And in no man's land, there are 5 agonies. The first one is greed, where no matter what you have, it never feels like enough. Second one is anger, because you don't know how to solve the problem. You get frustrated, you get angry. As a result, you lash out at your kids for acting their age, or your partner for something that they kind of said that isn't really a big deal, which leads to the third agony of shame. You become ashamed because you said you wouldn't do it. You said it would be different, which then leads to the fourth agony of loneliness, because at that point, it's just easier if you're not around. So you retreat. Maybe you work longer. Maybe you go home later, whatever it may be, which then leads to the fifth agony of uncertainty. Okay, because how long can this continue? How long will she stick around? How long will the people stay around in the business? How long will whatever, right? Which domino will fall first? And all of this, no man's land and the agonies, often is because of unresolved trauma, really, that men have experienced in childhood. And it comes out in the form of reactions and triggers in the relationship. And it's at that time when we can often blame the other person. Oh, well, she doesn't appreciate me. The likelihood is if you're complaining that she doesn't appreciate you, oftentimes it's because you're not appreciating yourself. Because when you do appreciate yourself, then your cup is full. And then any appreciation from other people is often a bonus, but you don't need it, right? And just bringing it back to me, for me, a lot of it for me came from the feeling of not being good enough. Logically, my parents were great. Emotionally, I felt very different growing up. Whenever we speak with the men about what they learned growing up, what environment they were in, what they were exposed to, because essentially what you were exposed to is what you tend to model, whether you like it or not, unconsciously, you can model it. They'll always start with, oh, I had a great childhood and it was really good. My parents weren't violent. They never hit me. And I could go on and list the logical reasons why they felt like they had a great upbringing. But then as you dive into it further, you realize emotionally they felt very different about their upbringing. Yeah. Emotionally, they felt either unseen or unheard. Like their voice didn't matter. Like they'd walk on eggshells around the parents. Like the environment was very unpredictable. They didn't know which version of their father they might get or which version of their mother they might get. They didn't really get a great deal of love and affection from maybe the mother or the father. The father might not have really modeled what it meant to be a really healthy, mature man. So as a result, emotionally, they became very stunted. And it's almost like the way I like to think of it, they have these emotional cuts, if you will. And as they go through childhood and they get older, those cuts, initially they bleed and they sore. But over time, they begin to scab. The scab's a little bit sore to touch. Eventually, the scab kind of falls off and the skin's kind of pink and still a little bit sore to touch. And then over time, the scar forms and there's still a mark on the skin. You're still reminded of what happened. It doesn't go away. You can see it, but you just learn to live with it differently. For a lot of guys that come to us anyway, the scab is still waiting to form. And it's only from them being able to realize what's actually contributing to the disconnect within the marriage, it's the disconnect within themselves as well, that they're able to really fix this. Now, what I'm saying might sound like it's a big project. Oh my God, I've got to go in and dive into all my childhood trauma and I've got to change the man I am. And oh my God. I get that might sound overwhelming. And it doesn't have to be that way. This is one of the reasons why we give the guys the Love as a King system. There's some shortcuts that you can take and some things you can do, like your husband has figured out. And also, it's the reason why the men go to the Alpha Reset. As Doug has said on previous podcasts, it's the fastest transformation he's ever witnessed and experienced in these 20 plus years in personal development. So I want to bring you in at this point, Mo, and just again, loop back around to your take on what the impact has on you as a woman when you can feel like the guy has some disconnect, maybe, and you can, I'm guessing as well, you can see when there's some issues that might not be resolved. And what that does for you as well, when you can see there's issues there, he's not resolving them. How does that affect you as a woman, and typically most women? How does that affect the relationship too? And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So what I experience, I can feel like his mom at times. Like I can feel like that's our particular tension. And I'm trying to, when he was growing up, there was certain experiences, and I've heard this with a lot of the guys that I talk to with their parents, where they experience some sort of either, like Tim was saying, abandonment or abuse, or maybe it was just a matter of like, no, my parents just never really connected with me at all. We sat down, we ate dinner. It was lovely and normal would be kind of how it's described. But when you dig, like you said, That was the case with a lot of him and with a lot of his particular things. And so how that came out in the marriage was an assumption that I wasn't connected to him, or that he wasn't worthy of being connected to, right? Because it was the passive experience, the walking in, the nothing's really wrong, but nothing was really connective either. And so when you walk into a marriage with the same amount of like connection type of relationship, you put those same things on your spouse. And you start to put on the expectations or the beliefs or the stories that you've written from childhood, whether those stories were, I'm not enough or I'm not worthy. Not that those stories are true, but your perception is entirely what you bring into your relationship. And I can feel all those things from him. And they can come out where where he would used to yell or be mean. But the reality was, like you were saying, he didn't feel like he was worthy. But he was making me feel like I didn't think he was worthy. So it's like a pressure, an emotional pressure that's put on me from his wounds that haven't been resolved. And it get really dirty because then I have mine and then they're interplaying with, oh man, you're walking away because you don't feel like I want to connect with you. My biggest issue is abandonment. Then you can imagine how those two things interplay with each other because of my particular experiences and my perception and my stories. So it feels really heavy, and it feels really scary. I'd say that those are some of the ways that I feel like a guy not dealing with, I'm just going to call it his junk, comes out for me. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. It made me think of the ways it comes out for me, or it did come out for me. Typically for me, I really struggled with before I did work on this, I really struggled with speaking up and having boundaries because as a child, I didn't see what a healthy boundary was. It wasn't demonstrated between my mother and father. Um, there really weren't any boundaries between those two. And also at the same time, as a child, it was an environment for me where it didn't feel very safe to speak up. Right, the relationship that I had with my father was one where he very much commanded respect versus earning the respect. It was like, hey, you will respect me because I'm your father, versus, will you respect me because I'm your father? Two very different approaches to the relationship, right? And as a result, I would then, if I spoke up for certain things, maybe it was some dinner that I didn't want to eat or whatever it was, it would be met with physical confrontation. And not that he would get violent and like hit me. Sometimes obviously he lashed out, but if you asked him, he'd say he did a far better job than his father, which is very true. Obviously, I love my dad as well. We have a great relationship now, and he listens to this. So I feel like I get to say that and be abundantly clear. At the same time, as a kid, it's scary, right? To be in that environment where, hey, I don't like this meal. I'm full. I don't want to eat anymore. However, I'm terrified to speak up and say that because I'm being rude or disobedient, and it gets met with a loud voice, an angry looking tone, this domineering character. So therefore, fast forward in a relationship, the idea of speaking up and really asking for what I wanted at first was really scary. I had to get over the fear of conflict, essentially. And also because I grew up without my sister living at home, I never really learned how to navigate conflict and things too. So boundaries and conflict was something that I really struggled with. And as a result, it then also fed into people pleasing, right? Because I feared, I didn't feel good enough. That was an undercurrent. As a result, I then wanted to people please so that people would like me. And also the boundaries thing fed into that as well. So then earlier on in the relationship, Amelia would then see me saying yes to other people, but then no to her. It's like, hang on a minute, who's the priority here? You're saying yes to all these other people, to working late, to doing this, to doing that. yet you're then not honoring the agreement with me. Obviously, that created an environment for her where she didn't feel like she could trust. She didn't feel like she was safe. But it all came from the childhood stuff that I wasn't addressing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say another really good example is addictions in general. Addictions, every time I've come across someone who's developed that, it's basically them trying to meet a legitimate need that unmet um, through the past, whether that was the past meaning in an ex marriage or past with childhood, but typically um, addiction issues or connection issues, which
Mm-hmm.
stem from your first idea of what connection is. I mean, if you really think about a parent relationship, it's so special, it's so important, it's the first relationship you have. One of the coolest things I've gotten to do, one of the coolest things I've gotten to do as a parent is to parent my children in a way that I never got as a kid. It was beautiful and powerful, and it's healing, um, and it wasn't necessarily anything my parents did wrong. It was a lack of awareness or knowledge, and I just think that there's so much um, connection and important things that are given from your parents' relationship with you that crap has to come up. Like, you can't have a
Mm-hmm.
perfect relationship. It's just not how it functions. There is stuff that will come up, whether small or big, it's still important. And it's still how we build a sense of self. It's how we build a sense of identity of who am I as a person. I mean, for example, I built this identity that, I'm not valuable. I'm not valuable. And people could have told me all day long, my friends, the people around me who I spend time with could have told me that. But my experience embedded something in me that made me believe I'm not valuable. And then realizing that, 6, 7 years ago on this healing journey, and starting to see, man, I make a lot of assumptions about my husband that he doesn't believe I'm valuable. Then like piecing those out and seeing what comes up for me when they do, um, have tremendously increased my ability to assume the best for my husband instead of assuming that he is just like all those people who made me feel da 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 da.
Mm-hmm. So, in your opinion, what if a guy's listening to this right now and he is resonating with the idea that there may be some uh, childhood trauma, we'll just call it that, whether it's big, small, whatever, or it's irrelevant, even the feeling of being not good enough from being a child. A lot of nice guy tendencies stem from childhood stuff. A lot of the guys that listen to this resonate with the idea of falling into deer, defend, excuse, explain, react, and also people pleasing and, like I said, nice guy tendencies. They
Yeah.
all stem from emotional disconnect, essentially, that is experienced in childhood. So I'm curious, in your opinion, what are some practical steps anyone listening to this can take right now to be able to overcome this?
The first one I thought of is when you go into deer or nice guy or whatever, pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about myself right now? Or what do I fear? What happened if I didn't do this? Those are two questions to start journaling through to really understand, like, what stories go on in your head. Like, everyone's got that little voice that's speaking, that's kind of dominating. What is it saying? That's a little surreal, but basically, yeah, what are things that what's the story I'm telling myself right now? For example, felt a bunch of tension, then you say, okay, what story, like from a particular situation, what story am I telling myself? I'm telling myself I'm a failure if I don't da 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 da. Okay. So then you can work that backwards, bring it to a coach if you're in a program with us, and walk them through where that started. Um, I find the best question to ask myself is, when is the first time I remember feeling this? When is the first time way back when that I remember feeling this feeling, whatever it may be? And I walk back through that memory and what happens. just to kind of first create awareness. So I'd say awareness is the first step. And that's post awareness, where you've already blown up, and you go back to that and you say, what story was I telling myself? And then you build up into real awareness. The second thing I'd say is community, people, and getting help is, again, not a weakness. It takes a very big man to say, hey, I need help breaking this down, and from someone who's done it before. And then lastly, I'd say create routines and patterns in yourself where you're able to turn down the noise on the outside and turn up the noise on the inside, whether that's silence or solitude in some way. Use alone time, because we're so distracted. There's so many things going on, particularly in America. That phone, if it is within reach, it is your mind is not present. So put away everything, sit still for an hour one day. If you can't find time for that, then there's probably other issues going on. And just listen to what comes up, because more than likely it's there. You're just avoiding it with stuff that's a distraction.
I love that. I'm going to add a couple as well. You've got to go through an experience. If any of this is resonating for you, you're only going to do so much applying logic to an emotional problem. It can certainly be helpful. One of the first this is why one of the first exercises we take the men through in the activation method is the shadow stickman exercise, so they can become aware of who they are in their shadow, where it comes from, how it shows up, how it influences them in their marriage and causes destruction, essentially, and sabotage. And also other areas of the life as well. And then we get very clear on what that signature is of the shadow stickman. How does it show up in your beliefs, in your feelings, in your actions, in your body language? That is an action step I'll give you as well. You can get a piece of paper, draw a big stickman in the middle. In the top left-hand corner, write beliefs. Top right-hand corner, write feelings. Bottom left-hand corner, write actions. Bottom right-hand corner, write language, body language. And then just think about the version of you that shows up when you, let's just say, not your best, when you're triggered, okay? And to Mo's point, think about what are the beliefs that go in there and write them down unfiltered, rapid response. Don't question anything that comes up, just get it down. That might be that I'm weak, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm useless, she's only with me for my money, whatever it may be, right? Same with the emotions, same with the actions, same with the body language. Then draw the face on the stickman that represents the facial expression of that version of you that you are, and then label him. And then you can then become aware of when he shows up, and you can begin the process of detaching, because you are not that version of yourself. That is something that is there, but you don't have to unconsciously be driven from that place. And the final one I would suggest, and you want to say, well, Mama, is to go through an experience, because you cannot apply it's very limited to apply logic to an emotional problem. Emotion is energy. Emotion, it cannot be destroyed or created. It only changes form. Therefore, you get to go through a process that gives you the ability to process the emotion that has been stagnant, that is like a niche that you just can't scratch. It's always there. You can get rid of it. Whether it's the alpha reset or whether it's something else, just go through something that will help you to really get to the root of it and get rid of it once and for all. I remember many men who have been through the activation method that have come there with addictions, have come there with labels like ADHD, depression, anxiety, dealing with addictions to porn, to drugs, to work, not as much to alcohol. And they've left there with a very different outlook, a very different energy, as woo-woo as that may sound. They sat there on that first day fidgeting on the couch, and they're leaving there at the end, and they're just calm. And in the weeks after, the behaviors have just shifted. The addictions just tend to fade, because, like you said, it's more of a connection issue. You want to say one more thing?
Well, just to piggyback off of that, my husband had been trying to recover for basically like 10 years from a lot of hard. And nothing shifted him like the Alpha Reset did. And then the activation method. They were the integral pieces to uproot a lot of this stuff that created a lot of traction, which then allowed me to surrender into that. That was
awesome. Well, thank you again, Momentum, for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode. But as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. You see, there are two types of men that listen to a podcast like this. Those that go on from one podcast or show to another, just hoping things are going to change and realizing that they're going to be in the same place month after month, year after year. You see, I was this guy, so I completely get it. You may just not be ready. But there's also a second man that listens to a show just like this. And this is a guy who takes massive action so they can shorten the learning curve, compress time, and get results to be the wolf. See, wolf is an acronym for wise, open, loving, and fierce. Now, ask yourself, which one am I? And just be honest with yourself there. And there's no judgment on my end, but if you're ready to move from deactivated deer mode, which is defend, excuse, explain, react, to activated wolf, wise, open, loving, and fierce, then go over to thepowerfulman.com/grow and go there now. In fact, I'll make it super easy for you. I will even put the link right in the description here so you can just click it and go over there now to learn more. Guys, in the moment of insight, take massive action. Go from deactivated to activated because like I said, life is too short for average. And I'll see you on the next episode.